Okay, good afternoon. So we'll today start with our ethics case study masterclass. So as you know, in the ethics paper, ethics, integrity and aptitude paper, fondly called ethics paper by many of the aspirants and your coaches, there are two types of questions. One is your theory part, two is your case studies part. Now, although both of these parts are first, they are important. Two, both of them are scoring. So now we'll understand what is the essence of this part, case studies part. What is so unique about this? You will find that in the case studies part, for your second part, the case studies part, questions range from 120 to 130 marks. So you may get around 6 case studies, (20 marks each), 20 marks into 6, 120 marks roughly. It may be 130, it may go to 110. So don't worry about these changes. These are structural changes. Once you know how to handle the paper, you will be able to solve it. As far as time management is concerned, once you enter the exam hall and you get the paper, you see how many questions are there. Just get a preview of all the questions. See how many questions you are supposed to do. Accordingly, manage your time. That these are the number of questions and how much time I have got. Suppose you have got 3 hours, as I have mentioned it earlier as well. 3 hours you have got, so around 180 minutes. Out of these 180 minutes, you can score off those 10-15 minutes, which will go in your invigilation, other formalities and all. You have to sign the paper. So many things are there. So you roughly get 165-170 minutes. In this time frame, you have to manage everything. So first of all, see how many questions are there in the theory part. Just count it, just mechanical counting, as we are very clear that in the optional you are getting 19 questions. You have to answer 19 questions. Likewise, in the theory part, suppose there are 6 case studies, and apart from that, how many questions are there in the theory part? That you have to judge. 6 are your case studies, and suppose altogether, if we see the sub parts also, there are some 12 to 15 questions in your first part. Now, the thing is that how much time should you give to the case studies? Equal time, theory and case studies both. More time to the case studies. Ideally speaking, you should be giving 1 hour 30 minutes to the theory and equal that 1 hour 30 minutes, or maybe there are some 5-10 minutes here and there, say 1 hour 25 minutes. Theory, case studies, 1 hour 25 minutes here and 1 hour 25 minutes to the case study. Okay, but if you look at the case studies, and if you just go by my suggestion, when you have the organization of the case studies, when you know how to attempt the case studies, what exactly is the examiner looking at, you need not give so much time. This case study should be over by 1 hour 15 minutes in a convincing manner. Because see, in the theory part you have more questions. In the theory part you are not given any structure. In the case studies you are given a case study and you have to study the case study, accordingly answer the case study. But what happens in the theory part? In the theory part there is a subjective dimension. It is an open-ended question, so definitely it will take more time. So you are buying 10 minutes from here, so roughly 1 hour 35 minutes, 1 hour 40 minutes you can give to your theory part. Which one to attempt first, the theory part or the case studies part? What I suggest is that you should start with the theory part. Take all your time here, like 1 hour 30 minutes or more than that, 1 hour 35 minutes, 1 hour 40 minutes. Then you are left with 1 hour 20 minutes roughly, or 1 hour 15 minutes. Those 75 minutes which you have, in that time frame you will be able to think about the case study and do it in a convincing manner. Do your theory part. While you are addressing your theory part, you will get into that particular environment, that acclimatization will happen. You will start thinking, and the case studies will require you to think. And once you have addressed your theory part, you will have lot many dimensions open to you, so that you can do your case studies in a convincing manner. Okay, so better idea is do the theory first, and then you have the confidence also that you have covered half of the part. That confidence also is very important, and once you are into that groove of answering the question, you can answer the case studies easily. So you have 75 minutes, you have roughly 6 case studies around. So how much time you get for each of the case studies? Roughly 12 minutes. Roughly. There may be certain case study where the passage is long. The case study, although there are few things in the case study which if you underline the stakeholders, if you underline the ethical reasoning, if you have a mental framework of what actually you are going to write, then it does not take much time. But suppose some of the case study may take 15 minutes. Should not be worried about it, because the other case study will take lesser time, 10 minutes. So don't go with a rigid framework as such of the timing, but in the examination keep yourself open to maneuvers, keep yourself open to manipulations which are required to cover the whole paper. Okay, now we'll come to the essence of the case studies. What is the essence of case studies? Roughly how much time you are getting? 1 hour 15 minutes you should devote to the case studies part. And let's see the beauty. The thing is that if you address it in a structured and logical manner, the case studies can provide you up to 70% of the marks. This is the scoring part, and that is why many of the coaches, they suggest that you should give more time to the case study. I say no. This part will give you more marks. It doesn't mean that you should devote more time. You should give lesser time, but still you will get marks. You know why? Because you will follow a structure. I will suggest you how to follow that structure. So 70% marks makes that out of 120, if the case studies part is of 120 marks, then you are getting around 84 marks. Score it off to 80, which is not only achievable, it can be achieved just by remaining relaxed throughout the examination and following the steps. So this is the score you are aiming to as far as case studies part is concerned. We are not being as ambitious in the theory part. We are aiming 60 around, only 60 plus in the theory part. You know why? Because that's a subjective dimension, open-ended questions. And that is why I suggest you to give more time to your theory part actually, because the questions are open-ended. It will require you to think. It will require you to put it in a structure. It will also require you to give your examples, as I have suggested in the case studies part or theory part, when it is the ethics paper and the essay paper both, and your optional paper too as well. You should give real life examples. You should give examples from your own life. When you use I, me in your ethics answer, it gives you more marks invariably. So stop using that third person in your ethics paper. Involve yourself. Give real life example. Give examples from your own life upbringing. That suggests the examiner that the ethical competence which we are looking for in a civil servant is present in this aspirant. Okay, so we have seen one thing, that the aim of the score, how much we can expect to score in the case study part. This is the 80 marks which we are looking at. How much time we are going to give? 75 minutes. Now we'll see what actually is being checked through the case studies. There are two things, two aspects which the examiner is looking at. What are these two aspects? Only the two aspects. The two aspects which I am going to enumerate now is checked in your theory paper also, theory part also, but in the case studies they are specifically mentioned and it's easy to check. These two aspects are: one, your ER. What is ER? ER is ethical reasoning. What is ethical reasoning? Ethical reasoning, the reason you give when you are backing it up with the moral values and ethical conduct, whether the decision you have taken, whether the path you are following is ethically reasonable or not, morally sound or not. That is called ethical reasoning. Suppose you say, as we'll see in the case study, that in the second case study which is with you, you see that you are working as an assistant of a boss. Just taking the example, we'll solve the case study separately also. Assistant of your boss, your superior, who is an intelligent person, who guides you like one of your elders in the family, who is a guiding person. Professionally competent also, professional. But you find that in the private space, in his private space, this person is not good with his family. You come to know that this boss of yours is beating his wife, is involved in the domestic violence, which other colleagues of yours in the office also know. Now, what will be your decision? Whether you will ignore it or you will take action, report it to the police, because you are well aware of the facts. Now see, suppose you choose to ignore it. Ignored. Now you took a decision to ignore, which is there in the option. If you look at the case study which I have provided to you, we'll discuss it separately also. You choose to ignore it. Now, what is the ethical reasoning here? See, by ignoring it, you are remaining professional. How? because there is a professional space and there is a personal space. Professional versus personal space. So your boss is professionally competent, professionally good with you. The boss is having a personal space with his own wife. You choose to keep these two separate. And I have told you during your theory classes also, the best ethical conduct is to keep these two things separate. This is the virtue here. What is the virtue here? That you are keeping your professional and personal spaces separate. You are also giving respect to the privacy to your every human being has a natural human right since his or her birth to keep his or her private life away from the eyes of the public, from the eyes of the people. You have also studied it, Article 21, right to life, personal liberty. In that, privacy angle are also involved. The privacy is their human right and you are giving respect to that. So if you are giving these two reasons, what reasoning you are following here? This is called ER, ethical reasoning, which the examiner is evaluating through the case studies. And how convincingly you do this reasoning will ensure how much marks you get. But there is a flip side if you take this decision to ignore the issue of domestic violence. The flip side is that you are ignoring a crime. And ignoring a crime despite knowing the facts of the crime itself is a crime. So, you are disrespecting the dignity a woman deserves. As it is mentioned in the case study that the woman, the wife of the boss, is not as literate, is not as competent, is not as intellectually, intellectually competent as her husband is. So in that situation, the poor soul requires somebody's help to bring her out of this messy situation which she is unable to report to the authorities, and you have chosen to ignore it despite you knowing the fact. So it's a disservice to the dignity of woman. Either you are a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. You should respect the dignity of the woman. Then comes your second part. By choosing to ignore this crime, you yourself are indulging in the crime. So it is illegal on your part. Because it is the duty of every citizen, it is the duty of every person not only not to indulge in the crime but to report if some crime is getting committed. You could have informed police anonymously. Anonymity. Right? So this kind of reasoning which we have followed till now is called ER. ER is ethical reasoning. What are the various dimensions of this reasoning? We'll see. Now, first thing we have understood ethical reasoning. What is the second aspect which is at check here, which is being checked by the examiner? The second aspect is which comes from this only, your decision making, what decision you take. You have done your reasoning, you have done your analysis, and then you have reached to a decision, particular decision. Why have you chosen that decision? How do you justify that decision? Out of all the ways which are available to you, why have you chosen a particular decision, which can be an innovative decision, still ethical decision? That is being checked here. So what actually are being evaluated? One is your legal, then your ethical, third workable, practical. It should be legal, it should be ethical, and it should be workable. If you are following these three aspects in your decision, it is going to fetch you marks. You have to look at these three dimensions when you are taking a decision. While doing the ethical reasoning, what actually are they asking you generally in the paper? First thing is, they are asking you about the stakeholders. Who all are involved in that case? You cannot say that I am studying the paper, I am also a stakeholder. I am attempting this GS paper 4, I am sitting in the examination hall, I am also a stakeholder, UPSC is also stakeholder, minister is also stakeholder, prime minister is also. I have seen this tendency of most of the aspirants, they write on and on. So many stakeholders, 8, 10 stakeholders. No. In the case which we have studied till now, in that case, who all are the stakeholders? First, you yourself as the assistant, in the capacity of assistant to your boss. Then your boss.
So you want any technical help?
No. Then the wife of the boss. Then who else? Technically speaking, these are the three stakeholders here. You can say the law authorities, you can say the office involved, you can say the society and nation, but that is actually not apparent, not apt. You should focus on these three people only. You yourself, the boss and the wife. That's it, done. The tendency which I have seen for most of the aspirants is that they will write 5, 10 stakeholders. Sorry to say so, this is not going to fetch you marks. Keep it minimal. Have you heard this word of minimalist nowadays in vogue? Minimalism. Minimal. Keep it minimum. As far as stakeholders is concerned, keep it minimum. Your answer will also be precise. Firstly, they asked you the stakeholders. Then, second thing which you should and must focus on is your ethical dilemma. What all ethical dilemma are there which you are facing? When you read the case completely, you absorb the stakeholders in your mind. Because see, how much time you get? 12 minutes around. In that 2 minutes, you should devote to thinking about the case, summarizing it, the brief. And where will you write the brief? Brief will be written in the introduction, and you must write introduction. Mind it, watch my words, listen to it very carefully. You must write a brief introduction to each and every case study, where you highlight the stakeholders first. Second thing which you highlight is your ethical dilemma. Then only you start solving the question. Okay. Now again, what method to follow in ethical dilemma? Again, minimalism. You should not enumerate as many dilemma as comes to your mind. You should only give a few dilemma, because you see, there is a difference between an executive, a manager, an IAS, or a person of the higher echelons solving a question, and a person who is a common man or woman. What we say, bureaucracy should be away from the hurry and strife of the commoners. This is the bureaucracy here. Bureaucracy has to be away from the common people. Hurry and strife. You take an example. You become a DC. You're sitting in your office. A farmer approaches you. The farmer has not been able to meet you since 6 months. He has been trying to meet you, but every time he is turned away by your subordinates. He meets you. This person is under lots of duress and stress. He will tell you, along with his wife, he has come there. I am unable to sleep well. I don't have my Aadhaar. My cow was stolen. My kids are hungry. So many things he will tell you, along with the wife who is crying incessantly, crying on and on. But you as a person will say, what is your issue? मुद्दा क्या है? आप ये बताइए. What is your issue? These all things are important for whom? Politicians. But you as a bureaucrat, you will have to cut the clutter, cut the noise, and see through the situation, and you will come to know the real issue. The farmer did not get, what is that called? Soil health card. Since the soil health card was not provided to the farmer was not able to take a right decision which seeds to sow, and that is why there were huge losses, and because of which the situation of the farmer became so pathetic, poor. So you will say that you must have been allotted this soil health card. Where was the problem? Did you not provide all the papers required? Did the scientists not support you? Was there any fault from our department? And you will solve it. For the time being, on a humanitarian ground, you may help the person on your personal capacity. Or if there is a fund, relief fund, allocated to your office, then you will give it to the person. But the noise and clutter which you have heard is of no use. Likewise, in the case study also, you must make a brief of it. These are the stakeholders, these are the ethical dilemma. Now we'll go and solve it. How will we solve it? Before choosing the possible course of action, possible courses of action, from that deciding a particular action which is legal, ethical, actionable. Three things: legal, ethical, and when I say actionable, it means workable. आप कुछ ऐसा सॉल्यूशन मत बता दो जो वर्केबल ही नहीं है. You cannot say that धरना प्रदर्शन करो. You cannot say such things because that will be anarchy. From your side, the suggestion should be legal. Follow these channels. Ethical. It should not disrupt the public movement on the road. Actionable, practical, something which can be done on part of your department, on part of the government, and on part of the people who have reached you. Right? So, Before deciding this possible courses of action, and from that choosing one action which is legal, actionable and ethical, you will do this analysis. What is that analysis? We will see the analysis. Have you heard of this word, acronym rather, PSLV? So in place of PSLV we are saying PCLV. What is PCLV? Whenever you choose an action, whenever you are going to choose a particular action, what it should adhere to, what all should you watch for? One, it is in a public interest. Two, from C, you should see the consequences of it. What happens most of the time, we take a decision and then once the consequences are weighing upon us, then we say that the wrong decision was taken. So you should evaluate the consequences of your action beforehand. A smart person does not just jump in the river and then say, I don't know how to swim. Smart person will evaluate all the eventualities of not knowing the swimming and then drowning in the river. Public interest should be the foremost criteria whenever you decide anything. Then comes your legal framework. Whether it is under the bounds of the constitution, under the code of conduct provided to you as a civil servant, under the code of ethics or not, that you must see. Then the values, whether it is adhering to the common generic values, humanitarian values, and then your call of conscience, your inner voice, whether it follows your call of conscience or not. All these dimensions should be there. PCLV. Remember this. This is how you have to do. After this analysis, you can choose your course of action. And remember that whenever you choose your course of action, the most important aspect here is that what ethical reasoning you give, what reasoning you are providing based on which you have taken the decision is of utmost importance. So the primary thing is your ethical reasoning, ER, based on which you will do your decision making. And while doing the ethical reasoning, you have to see first the stakeholders, then you have to see the dilemma, ethical dilemma, based on these and based on the parameter of what I have jotted down right now, PCLV, you will choose one particular action, one action. The possible courses are always available to you. You just do a common reasoning, you will understand these are the courses I can take. And sometimes the question itself will provide you, as in the case study 2 which is with you, the course of action has been provided to you. The only thing is that in the third point, in the third option, they are asking you to take any innovative action from your own side. Now you see, one more thing. In the ethics paper, there are certain do's and don'ts. First of all, we'll say don'ts. You must know the don'ts here. In the UPSC examination, these are not the do's which will make you successful, but the don'ts are very important. Don'ts. Don't do it. What are the don'ts? Firstly, we'll enumerate the don'ts. 。 . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . First and foremost, unnecessarily don't overuse the jargons. What I see with many of the aspirants is that they think that by using lots of jargons, by using lots of thinkers in their optional paper, they will fetch marks. Unfortunately, so sorry to tell you, this is not true. Your answer must make some sense. If you have used, remember two things, very important. The keywords. Keywords from where? Your own case study which is provided to you. Keyword from the case study which is provided to you. And important keywords from where? Your syllabus. Keywords from the case study, keywords from the syllabus. Judiciously, smartly. Not just sprinkling the jargons when they are not required, but making a sense. Suppose in your case study which I have referred to you, case study number 2, the PDF provided to you, you are using these terms, professional versus personal probity, personal space versus professional space. You say that moral integrity in the public space as well as private space. You say respect to the privacy of the boss. You will fetch marks. And where are these words coming from? From your case study and from the syllabus. That's why I say ratify, memorize the syllabus. Syllabus should be on your tip of the finger. And it has lots of benefits. When the syllabus is on your tip of finger, then whatever information you absorb, that will be placed under certain schema. What are these schemas? This is not a very fancy or technical word. This will be organized under different pockets, and these pockets are the topics in your syllabus. Your syllabus mentions some topic like, or some words like integrity. Now whatever you study regarding integrity in your all other GS papers, in your optional, everything will be organized here or not in that integrity. So whenever you encounter a theory question on integrity topic or anything related to integrity, will you be able to write those information or not? The answer is yes. When you encounter a case study where the value of integrity is involved, will you be able to give inputs from your understanding of GS and optional paper or not? Yes, the answer is yes. Now this is a smart learning, and that's why you are not supplied the syllabus, you are not supplied the previous year question papers by many of the institutions, because they want you to remain in the dark, buddy. When you are in the dark, they are taking you for a ride. That's why I suggest you must have the syllabus with you, you must have the previous year question papers with you, you have the ability to analyze it. Who says that you cannot analyze it on your own? Just go through it again and again. It will be ingrained in your value system. Okay, so keywords you can use, but don't overuse the jargons. First thing. Second, don't do. Second, don't do is, what you should not do is give an idealistic. What is idealistic? Anna Hazare approach. Anna Hazare. Who is this Anna Hazare? Anna Hazare, a social reformer from Raleigh Siddhi. In Maharashtra, you leave aside Ralegan Siddhi, Maharashtra. Remember the broad thing. He said that he will uproot corruption from India. He initiated a crusade, as he said, Dharma Yuddha, against corruption. But his solutions were so impractical, idealistic, that no government can follow it. When you are part of the system, you have to be pragmatic as well. You cannot just cater to the emotions of the farmer, of the farmer's family. You have to be empathetic, but you have to be practical as well. You can show that empathy, tolerance, compassion, which I have suggested you to do towards the public, because public interest is your foremost value when you are in the public service. There is no doubt about that. But remember one thing, while adhering to the public interest, you cannot put your pragmatism to the corner. You have to be pragmatic, you have to be legal. You definitely have to follow your conscience, your values, but you have to be legal also. And this should be workable solution. So giving idealistic solution, and see one more tendency I have seen for many of the aspirants is that giving your short term, long term measures while suggesting some way out, suggesting some solution. So this is not important. Suppose the riots have taken place. Riots. What will be your suggestion? First and foremost, to control the riot or not? Control it. Firstly, control the riots. During the control of the riots, you may use innovative ways. Rather than unleashing the police force on the crowd, you may use innovative methods. You may appeal to the leaders of this crowd that we can find a way out, we can find a solution by talking to each other. You may involve social agencies, you may involve the popular leaders of the particular place where riots are taking place. Then while finally winding off the case study, you may give a suggestion. For the futuristic purpose. For the future, you may give a suggestion briefly. Your idea should not be to cut short with the short-term measures, which are emergency measures, and focus on the long-term measures only. Being only visionary but not being pragmatic. If you are into bureaucracy, you have to be a man of action or a woman of action. You cannot be a person of words only. Walk the talk. And this is the one thing which fetches you marks in the interview as well. Are you able to walk the talk? Whatever you are suggesting, will you be able to implement it? Are you a person of words or person of action? Person of action any day wins over person of words, because planning anybody can do. So these two don't do's you have to remember. What to do now, that is also important. What to do, the do's. Don't do's we have understood. What to do? First and foremost, what I'll suggest, after reading the case study, going through the essence of the case study, firstly give a brief summary. Whether they have asked you for the brief summary or not, you must give. Briefly summarize. First is your briefly summarize. And what to write in the summary, we have already told that you must highlight the stakeholders, you must highlight the dilemmas, ethical dilemmas. Don't give the solution, because solution will be part of the question there. Then after summarizing, you start addressing the questions. Many a time the question themselves will ask you the stakeholders. So rather than, if you have briefly summarized the stakeholders in your introduction, then just make a flow chart. These are the stakeholders: S, stakeholders boss, wife of boss, you as assistant. Done. You have already summarized it in the introduction. Done. Stakeholder part done. Then the dilemma. For the dilemma also, if you have already summarized in your introduction part, brief summary, then this is your ED, ethical dilemma. What all dilemma is there? Professionalism, versus personal values, law abiding, versus commitment to office or commitment to boss. That's also a virtue. See, I have told you, in whatever capacity you work, there is always a master servant relationship. You as a public officer is servant to your citizens, to the people. You as a public officer is a servant to the state, to the country, to the country's constitution, to the legal framework of the state, that is the country. So you have to understand that there is a master servant relationship. You cannot break this trust, the trust between a master and the servant. So commitment to whom? Commitment to your boss. Likewise, you can summarize the dilemma also. Okay, then we'll go to the possible courses of action. What all courses of action can be there? You can simply enumerate. But what I suggest you is that while you are enumerating the courses of action, they have not asked you the reason, but you must give the reason or analyze it. Like, first course of action can be ignore. No, you have to give its positives, its negatives, both. Second course of action will be to report to the authorities, report to the police. Again, the positive, negative. This analysis must be done. Then finally, they ask you what course of action you will take. You will write that going by this situation, I always write I will choose. And what actually can be the way out here? Firstly, in the second case study which I have given to you, I'm sure you must have gone through it. The best way will be to talk to the wife of the boss informally. And with her permission, without breaching the privacy, with her permission, you will discuss the DV, domestic violence. What can be the causes and reasons behind it? What caused it? How long has it been? Informally. Then, since you are an assistant to the boss and he has been an intelligent professional and a gentleman, you will, in your informal capacity, by taking the permission of the boss, you will discuss this with boss also. Then you will take the help of social agencies or any particular social worker to ensure that the help reaches to the lady. And if all this fails, what we are doing here, soft handling, so that an institution, a sacred institution of marriage is also not broken, and a pragmatic solution can be found out. But if all this fails, then what? Encourage the wife of the boss to file a report on her own, because even the anonymous filing will not work. You must challenge her values, that why are you tolerating this injustice? You must report to the authorities. And once the reporting is done, you can also choose to recuse yourself from the office and say that I cannot work with the capacity in the capacity of the assistant with the same boss in the same office, because there will be conflict of interest. This much visionary you must be, that there definitely will be conflict of interest. Your professional relationship will get soured after all these issues come out. So there is an ethical reasoning, there is a pragmatic way out through which things can be solved. This is what you have to follow. This is the approach. And as I told you, that the real essence lies in what ethical reasoning you are providing. So, in the do's you are doing, brief summary you have given, after summary where it goes, your course of action and all, what you are taking. Remember one thing, introduction, body, conclusion. These all things become very important, especially the introduction. Conclusion you can keep it brief. You can briefly write that despite the fact that Domestic Violence Act came in 2005, its social absorption has not been that great. There have been false cases of domestic violence as well. So whenever a social law is framed, it should be done after due consensus and deliberation. This is your conclusion, a visionary conclusion. But this you must follow, introduction, body, conclusion. You know, if you are giving it a structure, a logical structure, that gives you 0.5 to 1 mark more than a person who has not been organized in his or her approach. So this is the another thing in the do's. First do was brief summary, then following the way things will evolve, then secondly giving it a structure, logical structure. Third thing is as I've already mentioned also, use flow charts and diagrams to persuade the examiner. Remember, when I say persuasion, it means that if you have written about it, if you have already written about it, give it a diagrammatical form also. As I told you, you have summarized the stakeholders and the ethical dilemma in the introduction, but then you are giving a diagrammatic schematic representation of it as well, both of them. Remember, mind it, both of them. Then there will be persuasion. The examiner will give you more marks. Remember it. It's a trick, it's a technique which most of the aspirants don't follow. They think that the examiner will be in a hurry and checking the content and going away with your answer. No, that's not true. Persuasion is important. Then after that, as I've already told you, the keywords and terms must be used, but not over jargonize it. That also is there. Then comes your I, me, my approach. I, me, my approach is that use your examples. Involve yourself. Keep yourself in the shoes of the person who is there in the case study. In this case, the assistant. Put yourself in the shoes of the assistant. Visualize. There comes the role of visualization. Because once you visualize your situation, you will come up with an innovative point which is unique for you, and that is what examiner is actually looking for. The points which others will mention is not going to give you any extra marks. Your extra marks will be achieved only if you do the role playing, buddy. Role playing. You have studied it. Role playing. What is role playing? You must have participated in one or the other game in your schools or colleges. You are made captain, or you are made class monitor. What role you are playing there? The role of the leader. Kids are trained to play the role of the leader since they were so young. The same thing which you have to do. For each of the case study, put yourself into the shoes of one of the stakeholders. For every stakeholder, when you are writing, put yourself in the shoes of the person, and you will realize, visualize it. Your answer will be unique. Your answer will reflect the realities, and there you will get marks. And then finally, as I already told you, the real life examples. When you get a case study which is there in the case study number 2 in your PDF, you see the similar case happened recently. One of the DIG, which was there on the social media. That's why I tell you, when you use social media, use even this one for your examination preparation. DIG in one of the state, I am unable to recall the name of the state, maybe Uttarakhand, was found beating his wife. Recorded on camera, released on social media. One of the subordinates had done this, had filmed it, had shot it on her camera. This is unethical actually. Rather than this, what she could have done, she could have filmed it, then shown to the DIG in a private space. Encourage the wife to file a case against the person. Use social agencies, social workers. But invading the privacy of a person is not ethical at all. This way you have to analyze. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take up the case study number 2 in your PDF, and then we'll find how we can solve it. So here you can see the second case study on your screen. Okay, so you see, now you have got this case study. What is the case study? You are a young, aspiring and sincere employee in government office. Now, what to do? Working as an assistant. See, this you have to mark. Working as an assistant. Your capacity is clear. To the director of your department, okay, you are a assistant, master servant relationship, okay. Then you need to learn and progress, okay. Luckily your superior is very kind. Now mark these things: kind and ready to train you, okay. Very intelligent, well informed, a thorough gentleman, professional, professionally competent. You have great respect for the person. These things you have noted down. Second para, you have good tuning with the boss. He started depending on you, okay. He shows a lots of trust in you, and that is why when the option of reporting comes, you must see whether I should breach the confidence the boss is having in me or not. That is one of the ethical angles. As a human being, it is very important to remain ethical come what may. So the person called you for some urgent work at your place, at his place. You reached house, you realized that you hear lots of crying of a lady. Later on you realize from the office that behavior he had with his wife is bad, which is DV, domestic violence. Okay, now moving further. Now his wife is not well educated, which is written here. So the basic things which you have noted down is that the trust your boss, your superior is having in you is immense. Trust issue. Second thing is he is a competent person. What about the wife? Wife is probably uneducated, so vulnerable. The law being broken here is the domestic violence is being done. The crime here is domestic violence. You are a witness to it because you have heard the cries and you have gathered information from the office, and office colleagues have told you that your boss is involved in domestic violence. Now, these are the actions given to you. Now, you have to analyze each option with its consequences. Ignore thinking about it because it is their personal matter. First thing, how will you solve this? What all things you will bring here? We will see in our screen. So, if we say the first option is ignoring. Before we are going to the options, what I have suggested to you, you have to give the brief summary. In the summary, what all you will write? You will write the case involves a bizarre act of domestic violence. As evident from the notings of the colleagues, office colleagues, and by hearing the cries, I have also realized this you will note down. Then you will say the stakeholders involved here are me, wife of the boss, and wife of boss, and the boss himself. Then you will say the boss is having great trust in me, is professionally competent, fine. Now the dilemma, you will say the dilemma, which what is the dilemma I am having is to breach the trust of boss to ignore the crime against a vulnerable woman or to follow the call of conscience and report it to police. I have written it, I have summarized it in my own words. What I suggest you is to follow your own wordings, is to follow your own language, your own understanding, because that uniqueness in your summary will bring out the person in you, will bring out the ethical competence angle in your personality, which I am interested in actually. Fine. So then we'll go to the first part, ignoring it. Now the consequences, they are asking for the consequences. So which consequences you will write? The ethical consequences. First of all, the ethical reasoning and then the consequences. So what all is involved here? The ethical angle involved here is, as I have already told you, professional versus personal space. Although a crime is being done and you are witness to it because you have heard the cries, you are witness to it because you have gathered the fact from the colleagues, but that is being done in a personal space. Okay, you should respect the privacy or not, you should respect the trust the person has in you or not. That is the question here. So what will be the consequences if you ignore it? If you are ignoring it, you are ignoring a crime. And letting the woman suffer. You are ignoring the call of your own conscience. You are ignoring the value system, your upbringing, which has always told you, your parents, your teachers, everyone you idolize has suggested you to stand against the atrocities if it is being done firstly in that kind of relationship which is based on trust. Now wife and husband, they also have a trust issue, right? So in that relationship, if somebody is breaching it, especially a government officer committing a crime, you are ignoring a crime being committed by a government officer, and that itself is a criminal act. You are muzzling your own inner voice, your own call of conscience. This way you will cover the point number 1, ignoring. What is the second point? Second point is regarding reporting the case. What will happen in this second option? Whatever advantages were there in the first option will be disadvantage in this second option, and whatever disadvantage is there in the reporting, what is the disadvantage? You are breaching the trust of the person, trust of your boss. You are invading the private space of the boss. So whatever is the disadvantage here becomes an advantage here. So your point number 1 and 2 are covered. What about point number 3 in the same case study? Your point number 3 is they are asking you, do you have an innovative solution to it? So firstly, we have discussed the innovative solution. What is the innovation? Solving it through talks. Without making a hue and cry, informally talking to the wife of the person, getting it, gathering all the information, gazing the information. You know, gaze, what is gaze? Getting an insight into the information. Is it a regular practice? Is it a habit of the person? Has it been reported earlier? Has there been any effort to solve it earlier? If yes, and it has not been solved, then you encourage the wife of the boss to report it. Provide all the help that can be given to her. Informally talk to the boss also. Pricking his conscience. Prick. That he is a government servant, indulging in a crime. Colleagues, subordinates all keep him in high regard. Because of the trust they have in the boss, because of the respect they have garnered for the boss, they are not reporting it to the authorities. Should he not take some action? If it involves some behavioral modification, behavior changes, with the use of a counselor, marriage counselor especially, that also you should arrange. You should actually encourage your boss and his wife to go and meet some marriage counselor who solve it through therapy, through counseling. That can also be suggested. And as I told you, if all else fail, then use your reporting to the authorities. But then if you report to the authorities, then you have to recuse yourself from the office, because there will be conflict of interest. Your case study will be done. Suppose you write this answer in an introduction, body, conclusion manner, in an organized manner, giving your conclusion also that these kind of acts being done by government officers is a blatant misuse of the public authority and they should not indulge in it. for them the punishment should be severe, so that other government officers don't repeat it. Moreover, the wife of the government officer should also be made aware about a particular law which is existing there. These kind of suggestions you have given in the solution, final conclusion. How much marks do you expect if you have done it and you have presented in beautifully in a good neat handwriting and all? You may expect 14 to 15 marks if you have followed this path, giving it a complete solution, closer to the solution, having introduction, body, conclusion, all, presenting it with the help of flowcharts, diagrams, giving examples, suggesting the way out for a long term in your conclusion. This way case studies become very scoring. I have discussed one case study. Another case study is with you. Case study 1. I repeated many points which were relevant for the case study 2 during our course of understanding the essence of the case studies, and then again in the solution, so that it remains with you. It registers in your mind. Now what you have to do, go through the case study 1 which is provided to you in form of the PDF. Write brief summary and also note down the time it takes for you for each of the steps, how much time you are taking to summarize it. Then you write your introduction or the point number 1 in your question, 2, 3 and all. Finally give a conclusion as I have suggested, what I have suggested you, brief summary. In the summary what you have to write? You have to write about the stakeholders, the dilemma, ethical dilemma. Then you will use your ethical reasoning, analyze it from various perspectives, PCLV, jot down all the possible courses of action which can be there. Finally choose one which is ethical, legal and actionable. After that you have given a brief conclusion. Your work is done. So write down the answer to that particular case study and send it across. Thank you very much for joining. I'll meet you again with a session of so many case studies. We'll keep practicing on the case studies, and remember again, the number of case studies, that is not important. Your practice is important, yeah, but mechanically doing so many case studies will not solve anything. You have to improve your competence. Fine. So work on the competence aspect. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much for joining.